everybody. Welcome to week 9 of the Bible Together reading program. This week we are finishing up the book of Leviticus and still reading along in Hebrews as well. We'll move into the book of Numbers. But as we've finished up Leviticus this week, that's kind of what I want to still talk about. It has us sitting in a place that a lot of us would rather skip. And as I've tried to say with this reading plan, feel free to skip or skim, do whatever you need to do to get through this. We're all in it together, and it's okay if you don't read every single word along the way. But especially in Leviticus, because Leviticus sits us right in the middle of a bunch of blood and sacrifice, and a lot of talk about consequences. And if we're honest, many of us, especially in traditions like ours, have learned to be a little bit wary of sin talk, because too often sin has been used as a weapon, a way to shame, to exclude, to control. So we like to emphasize grace and mercy and welcome, and those things are true. They are at the very heart of who God is. There's a tension that I keep coming back to this week. What if, in trying to avoid the harm that can come along with sin talk, we have also lost sight of just how serious sin actually is? Because in Leviticus, obviously, sin isn't treated lightly. It's not abstract. It's not just a feeling of guilt. In Leviticus, it is costly. It's bloody. It is literally life and death. And maybe that's the point. Maybe all that blood isn't about a God who demands violence, but about a people who need to see, viscerally, that living out of alignment with God's design breaks things. It breaks relationships. It breaks communities. It breaks creation itself. Sin leads to death, not necessarily as some kind of a punishment that God hands down, but just as the natural consequence of a life out of balance with the God who is the source of life. And then when we turn to Hebrews, suddenly all of that language about sacrifice and blood and atonement, it's all gathered up and reframed in the person of Jesus Christ. Not another animal. Not another ritual repeated over and over, but God offering God's own self. Which means this: whatever sin is, however we define it, it is so serious, so deeply woven into the fabric of our world, that God doesn't just dismiss it. God enters into it, takes it on, and absorbs the cost. That's not cheap grace. That is costly grace. I think it was Bonhoeffer who warned about cheap grace, grace without discipleship, grace without transformation, grace without the cross. And maybe that's the invitation for us this week, not to return to a fear-based understanding of sin, not to start pointing fingers and keeping score, but simply to tell the truth. To tell the truth that the ways we live out of alignment with God's love toward our neighbors, toward ourselves, towards creation, those things matter. They have weight. They have consequences. And also to tell the truth that God's response is not abandonment. It is self-giving love. A love that goes all the way to the cross, and then keeps going into resurrection. So maybe the question we carry with us this week is, what does it look like to take sin seriously and grace just as seriously? Not cheapening either one, but allowing both to lead us deeper into the life God is calling us to live. Thanks for joining me this week, and I look forward to talking with you again next week. Have a great day.